All right, Jimmy here. That sparkly background you see behind me is actually rain on the window of my truck. I am in Arkansas. I'm holding a flashlight in one hand. It's 2 in the morning and I have just been thinking of making this video about why I am learning that you may want to do a sole proprietorship. In other words, just a DBA without creating a new entity rather than an LLC. That's something I did not know. And I think everyone creates LLCs, myself included, because you are told or you have the understanding that that is simply what you are supposed to do if you form a business. Like, that's just the given first step, just make an LLC. And then when you start to look into it a little bit more, just peel back the first layer of the onion, if you will, it continues to sound like a good idea because LLC means limited liability company. So it kind of, on the surface, it makes you sound more legitimate, right? You're like, well, this is great, because people see LLC and they're like, oh, that guy's a professional. He has a business. He's an LLC. He doesn't just, do business under some name. He's taking the time to register it. I can look it up in the state, website. And so it lends this air of credibility that makes your customers trust you more. But ironically, as a business owner, you're looking at it like it's this out. It limits your liability. That's literally what it's called. Limited liability company, meaning that you, in theory, are not personally liable for certain things. And again, when you just peel back that first layer of the onion, you don't know what exactly those things are. You assume that you are somehow safer as a result of making an LLC. You're not really sure how your personal liability has been limited, but in theory it is. And there's a few reasons you may want to consider going a different direction. First one that really hit me hard during the drive tonight, listening to a whole bunch of YouTube videos, obviously just listening to the audio while I'm driving, and feeling really good about my ability to represent myself in court while bringing a lawsuit against my insurance company, Progressive, for a major error that they made, but not only the error, but refusing to take responsibility for it. That was that they did not submit filings when they were required and when I requested them to submit them. And looking back on the situation, it's completely understandable why they kind of made the assumption that the filings were not required and why they chose not to submit them. It really is just a human error in the sense that I did request it, and because I requested it, they should have either just done it or at least looked into it. But their reasoning for not looking into it is understandable. What is not understandable is the refusal of the company to take responsibility for that and make it right. And I feel very well equipped to make that case in court with all the evidence and everything else. But what could be a huge, huge hang-up is the fact that I cannot, most likely, represent my LLC in court. And I'm prepared to make an argument that I am allowed to represent myself, and I can represent myself as somebody who suffered damages due to the harm that was done to my business. I am the owner of the business. And as the owner of the business, I had certain expectations for how I, as an individual, would benefit from owning and managing that business. So when the business was shut down by the failure of a large corporation to do their duty, that affected me personally, and I would like to represent myself in that case with the understanding that the harm done to the business does affect me personally, and I should be able to represent myself for the damages done to me personally through the damages done to my business. And as far as precedent goes, I don't know if anyone's taken exactly that line of argument as to why they should be able to bring a lawsuit against someone regarding damages done to their business. I should bring a lawsuit against this flashlight for damages done to my jawline. But I do know that the vast majority of the information available out there states, in most states, and Michigan may be an exception actually, which is very interesting, but also I may not be able to file this case in Michigan because Progressive Corporate is not based in Michigan. I am, and the underwriters of my policy were, but I'm not really trying to sue the underwriters necessarily. So I do know that people have not, in most cases, had luck self-representing matters related to their LLC or any other kind of corporation. So I do think I may be taking a unique line on that, and I may be able to represent myself under the circumstance and with the statement that I'm representing the damages. I'm representing myself due to the damages done to me. And I could go on and on about that, but that's a different video. The point is, there is a major concern with running an LLC. If you would ever, consider the need to potentially represent yourself in court, whether as defense, because you, in the course of doing business, something happened that causes someone to want to sue you, or more likely, because this really happens all the time, like people in the course of business, you come into contact with all sorts of people, and not all of them are honest, not all of them are going to fulfill their contracts, not all, and some are just downright unscrupulous or fraudulent and things like that. And as a business owner, you may have to deal with that. You may have to take people to court, because I do not run my business as a charity for dishonest people. Like, there's that would be so disrespectful to those people who actually pay what they're supposed to pay for the service they receive. And the fact is, like, if you are starting an LLC as, just one person, you're just starting up a very small business, you don't have the means to hire a lawyer to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars or more because something happened that needs to be taken care of. Just the fact alone that you may be compelled, whether right or wrong, you may be compelled by a court to hire a lawyer just to be able to represent yourself, really, because it really is yourself. Your business is yourself, and everyone who's started a small business from the ground up completely understands that. Whether we call it an LLC or whether we call it a sole proprietorship, like, I am my business. My business is me. Obviously I try to create some distinction and some separation and some, right to use a little bit of the money that I earn outside of my business, to eat or do other things I enjoy. The reality is that I'm constantly spending my resources, my energy, my money, and everything else I have to try to build my business. And so we all know that, and we also know that in the first few years of business, at least, you're not going to be made of money. You're probably not going to be able to afford to hire expensive lawyers. And the fact is, like, you're not even going to be allowed to represent yourself in court. And that's almost even scarier when you think of someone bringing a lawsuit against you. If you can represent yourself, you may or may not win the lawsuit. But you at least have a chance to walk away from it with relatively minor financial damage. If someone brings a lawsuit against you, you're able to defend yourself in court successfully. Now, you walk away with just the travel costs or whatever. But if you have to hire a lawyer to even be allowed to even have somebody be allowed to represent the case, all of a sudden that limited liability is not limiting your liability at all. It's actually creating a huge financial liability to you to hire a lawyer so that your company can even be represented at all in the court case and not just have a default judgment entered against it. To me, that's such a major concern. And I would love to dissolve my LLC as soon as possible, given that information. But the fact is that since I have a vehicle titled under my LLC, and other other things that are like half done, because that vehicle's not fully paid off, and it is actually fully paid off, but if I was to sell it to myself, if my LLC was to sell it to myself, to me, I'd have to pay taxes on the full value of the vehicle a second time. And there may be a way around that, but it would have been easier. And in my specific case, and I've been a business owner for 3-4 years now, I've never had the LLC benefit me, but I have definitely had it complicate things. And it would have been easier in my case if I had never formed one and I had just simply gone ahead and done business under an assumed name, a DBA. I could call it whatever I want. I'm not limited to only business names that end with LLC. I could call it exactly what I wanted to call my business from the beginning, which is Send It Delivery Co. And all I need to do is file a DBA for that name, and then just start doing business the way I want to do it. So there's that. Let's go into the other issues, because there are some. Taxes, more complicated, more confusing. No real tax benefit that I've seen. Just more tax concerns. So there's that. And then there's the question as to whether it actually limits your financial liability. And I kind of am thinking of it this way at this point. My goal is for my business to succeed. So if I have to take money that I am personally earning in other work and I end up investing it into my business. That's something I've tried to avoid, but it always seems to be the case. And like, the fact is, I don't really plan on closing my business, and really, unless it really is impossible to keep it open. And by impossible, I mean that even with the money I'm making through other work, I cannot keep my business alive. And it is literally bankrupt, not just some legal term that I can use to get out of paying somebody something, but like them actually completely bankrupt. And my business isn't bankrupt unless I am too. And I think that's the mindset that a lot of small business owners are going to have. We decided to do this thing, and we're going to be all in. So, your own attitude is going to prevent you from limiting your financial liability, because if you need to take money and invest it into your business, you're going to do that. And, that's a personal decision, and maybe you are able to avoid making that personal decision. Maybe you're able to say, yeah, if my business doesn't make it, if I have to even put one penny of my own money earned outside of the business into the business to keep it alive, it's just done. I'm not doing it anymore. And that's fine. If you can do that, maybe if you have that mindset, an LLC is the thing for you. But if you have the mindset that you're in this and you're going to make it happen, and you're going to work at it, and you're going to spend your own energy and money and time and effort, as long as you have those things to try to make this business succeed, then your own mentality is going to cause you to have personal liability. And I think that the really unfortunate type of situation that could really come into play is more like, if your business is involved in something really major that causes a major lawsuit, and now you personally and individually are on the hook for that, whereas in theory, and I would need to research this to confirm this because I don't know if this is even necessarily true, like, what if my business is sued for $8 million tomorrow, because something really truly horrible happens? And the way I look at that, is if something really truly horrible happens, like if God forbid, one of my vehicles is involved in an accident that kills somebody, because that's the kind of like severity that would have to happen for this to even come into play. At that point, something has gone so wrong that the financial liability is honestly not the first thing on my mind. And the other reality is that, I only have so many assets anyways. So honestly, even if someone did sue me personally for $8 million, there's limited recourse in the U.S. to collect that if I don't have it available. And basically, they can't collect against my homestead. They can't collect against my primary vehicle. So no matter what happens, I am still going to have a place to live that they can't collect against. I'm still going to have a vehicle to drive that they can't collect against. And I'm sure that any wage garnishment is still going to leave me something. So, if something so horrible happens, that even becomes a factor, then I'm just going to be very, very, sad that it happened. And I guess, in some way grateful, or at least put it in perspective, that I obviously escaped with my life, and I can still have a home, and I can still have a car, and I can still have income. And if, a portion of that income is taken for the rest of my life to pay off this unconquerable debt that was incurred, then I guess, those are things that happen in life that, we hope never happen. But I don't know that I would necessarily feel better about it just because I was able to say, well, I'm just going to declare bankruptcy and close my business, and now I'm not personally liable for any of it. Because I am personally liable for it in my conscience if something goes wrong in my business and someone's seriously injured or killed or something like that. I'm not going to, just because on a legal standpoint, and I'm not even sure if it is true in a legal standpoint that I could get out of that kind of thing by just closing the business down. But even if I could, it's not going to resolve that for me as an individual. And that's a risk that we all take whenever we do anything. And obviously, being in a line of work where I'm driving a lot or have other people driving and have vehicles on the road, this could be a whole other video in which I rant against the high cost of insurance, because being able to afford to maintain my equipment and buy newer equipment going to keep people a whole lot safer than me just shelling out tens of thousands of dollars a year for an insurance policy that's only going to kick in after something terrible happens. So there's a nutshell of a whole other video. But the fact is, I guess, in all the perspectives I have on it, all an LLC does is add an unnecessary legal complication in different ways: taxes, representation, and maybe in certain limited instances could end up being beneficial as far as personal liability goes. But in the major deal breaker ones, those are things you never want to happen anyways, and once they happen, you've already lost no matter what. It's kind of how I look at it. So I hope this has given you some food for thought, and maybe if you're thinking about potentially creating an LLC, that's something you really want to think more about. Make sure you understand exactly what it is you're doing and what it is you're trying to accomplish, and you're not just doing it because that's the thing to do, or supposedly is the thing to do. So I hope you found this video informative. If you watched all the way to the end, sorry about ranting for the first 7 to 10 minutes on one single topic, but it is really big, obviously big major issue for me right now. And as somebody who's a fairly confident speaker, fairly confident that I try to do the right things, and the only reason I'm taking anyone to court is if they blatantly and flagrantly did not try to do the right things. I'd rather just keep it simple, be able to ensure my ability to represent myself, and not have the complication of an LLC in the picture. So that's it for this video, I guess, and I hope you all have a good night, as I am way overdue to do myself.